everybody, welcome to one more round. Today, I'm very excited. We've got Jeff Shirrell with us today. He's a leadership coach, a speaker in all types of different settings. But we're going to go deep today. We're going to talk about a lot of fun things. Before we get into it, though, I want you to, if you get some value out of this over the next, 30, 45 minutes that we're talking, make sure to share this out with a friend. Even if it's a snippet that, connects with you and resonates, it'll resonate with someone else. So, with that, I got Eric here, who's my co-host. And Jeff, welcome, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for what you guys do. It's been an amazing experience so far. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of cool. I think I was telling you before that my wife knows your wife through some, group that they're in. And it's like, what a small world.
Yeah.
Because I believe she had even mentioned, or maybe your wife mentioned it to my wife, that, you'd be a good candidate. And I think you reached out to me. Like,
yes.
I didn't even think about it. So
yes.
It's cool to finally connect and, go through some things. So, you do coaching and you do speaking,
yes.
and we'll get into all that. But
yeah.
what did you do prior to all this?
Prior to all this, I just did the best I could and tried to do all the right things. And as life went along, I had found out, and I figured that I did everything right, only to find out that I had done everything wrong based on the wrong priorities and values.
Right.
I think that's a common thing in this world. So I say all that. I grew up in South Bend, Indiana, outside of South Bend, Indiana. Great Midwestern life. And we worked hard. My father was an entrepreneur. He had his own tool and die shop that he took over from his father. And that was it. Work was first. And it was, I think that's common, where it's like survival and you just want to provide as the guy. I don't believe that my father knows the Lord or knew the Lord. And it was just work. And then my mom was a great mom and is a great mom. And she just takes care of things at home. And so my dad taught us a lot of great things. However, as life went along, I realized, because things were falling apart in my own life, and it was amazing because when I turned around and realized this, I looked back at my 5-bedroom house, great house, fantastic suburban neighborhood, working for one of the top banks in the country, and a great leadership opportunity. And I look back and I'm like, this house is falling apart. My family's falling apart. My marriage is falling apart. And I thought I did everything right. I went to school, I got the degree, I got the good job, I got, the girl that's the cheerleader, which shouldn't happen for a nerd like me, and it's like, but everything was falling apart from the inside. It was a facade because it wasn't founded on the right things, and those right things are the word, having the word in your heart. The wife should be next, your spouse should be next, then your kids and your family, and then work. And so just when you have things out of priority, out of alignment, and your health in there too, right? You can't, it's like you barely pour from an empty cup. So when you don't have those things lined up correctly, things start to fall apart, they start to shake, they start to break, and they just continue to do that over and over until you're finally like, get it together. God bless you.
Thank you.
Get it together. Get it together. When is it you're going to get together, and when are you going to finally do something about it? Quit pointing the fingers, quit asking for everybody else to do it for you, and you do it. And then say, hey, can you come along and help me out? I'm going in this direction.
Awesome. So you grew up, with a dad that really didn't have a lot of faith in that aspect, but a hard worker. You learned a lot of valuable lessons.
Yes.
Like, let's dig back a little bit into that, because growing up in an entrepreneurial house, it's hard for me to relate, because my dad, he had me very young, so he went to work at a mine, like my grandfather, my great-grandfather, probably my great-great-grandfather, that ended up retiring from that. And, he worked himself, became an engineer, came up here, did very well successfully, but not like owning his own business. What was it like for you watching not only your dad, but your grandpa, live that kind of life? Was it different? And you went into banking, so what were your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So my family created and owned a tool and die shop, in the Rust Belt of South Bend, Indiana. It was a dying industry. So there's a lot of pressure. I think that my dad saw the worst of it because there was a lot of alcoholism in his family, a lot of use of other things that to help them endure the pain that you didn't want to talk about. We're not going to deal with this. We're just going to grind, put our head down and grind through it, which is admirable, yet there's a lack of health in that.
We see it happen all the time.
Right, exactly. Things start to fall apart. My dad said to me, he goes, I saw what was done right and what was done wrong, and I try to do better for you boys, and I want you boys to go out there. We didn't do everything perfect, but we want you to do better, take what was right, and do better on that. So he was like, I'm always going to be home for dinner. I'm not going to drink the way that he goes, that I had to see and endure from my family. But he was, out by 9 o'clock and up way before anybody else into the office, working his tail off to keep the lights on at the shop, and then as well as provide for the families that work for him. His responsibility was for his family, and actually really a lot for the guys that work for him. And he always told this great story. He goes, I don't want to hear how hard business is from any corporate guy. He goes, until you have to take a second mortgage out to pay a payroll, I don't want to hear about it. And I was like, whoa, man, you understand when you own your own business, there's some sacrifice you have to make. Not that you don't in the corporate world, but it's not the same level of responsibility because it's all on you as the owner. And that's extreme ownership, and that's how it was. So we learned a lot, and it's interesting, when we were teenagers, we came and started working for him. He's like, all right, let's go, let's get in the shop, stop babysitting. Your responsibilities are this. And it's not going to be, hey, you're the boss's son, right? No. You're going to sweep up the metal shavings, you're going to clean off all the lights, and you're going to clean the bathrooms. And you're going to have these skills so that you will always have a skill set. You can sweep and you can clean a bathroom. And if everything falls apart or you need a little motivation when you get to college, don't worry, there's always a job for you in the tool and die shop. So that was the life that we lived, and we learned a lot in there. It was, do a good job. It's like you could sweep up a shop, but it's like he'd come in and be like, you didn't get under there, you didn't get in that corner, so go back out there and do the right job. Do it right. He goes, always leave the place better than you found it. Always get in there and get a good job, do the job right and get it done right. Just a lot of great values. And you just saw as you went through, and I went through the corporate world, those leaders that brought that up, you're like, hey, I've heard that before. And those who didn't, you saw problems.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Me growing up, it was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember specifically, it was always my stepmom because she was just around more during the day. Like my dad, earlier years, whatever, working in mines, so he'd be like night shift, this kind of thing. But she would always, forget my language, she was just like, don't half-ass things. Do it right the first time, because if you don't do it right, I'm going to make you do it again, and it's double the time.
Yeah.
And she ingrained that into me. So even today, whatever, what's that extra 10% I can do just to make sure I don't have to do this again? And that's important because you don't see that instilled a lot in the values today. I think it's okay not to be excellent, and the pursuit of excellence is something I think all kids should learn.
Yeah, it is an honoring of life in the day that you've been given. I mean, how many people are wanting one more day, or in a hospital bed, only wanting one thing to get out of that bed, right? Steve Jobs said that in a speech one time, and it was great. It's like the most expensive place is the hospital bed, because there's only one thing that people want is they want to get out of that. So honor that. And sometimes you kind of need that start reminder after you get comfortable or things get mundane, and I think that I'm guilty of it over the last couple of years of working at home and just get up, dress up, show up, put in the hours, and then go back. And thankfully we're here in Arizona, and I think life was a lot better here, but it got mundane, and people got too comfortable. I think people are comfortable, and they need to get a little bit uncomfortable and get back out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you've seen it. I mean, people.
We all have the same background. My dad was a logger. I'm from Washington State, 2.5 hours from Seattle on the coast. So my dad got up at 4 a.m. My whole life, and everything was do your job right. And I was blessed. I grew up in church, so that was a positive. It was a little hardcore, it was a little Pentecostal, that was a little much, but at least I grew up in Sunday school and all those things, which was instilled in me. But my dad worked. He's my hero as far as he's awesome. A good man. My real father passed when I was 6 months old. Never knew him. I'd have never known that he wasn't my father if they wouldn't have told me, because we lived in a small town. But I still remember him working Saturdays because he's a mechanic also to make extra money. And and I know when I ran my company, to talk about making payroll, I've had to put money in to make payroll many times, and I've never missed a payroll in my life. We would go without before your people. I mean, we had one time we had a payroll system went down back when they first started doing them online, and I had to drive, and it was the Bills were playing the Tennessee Titans in that game, and I wanted to watch the game because I was a Bills fan. And
I'm sorry about that.
I know. And I had to go drive to 20 houses and take front desk people and write them physical checks because they needed the money.
Wow.
Or it would have messed their life up.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. You're exactly right. But you learn those things from that generation. Your father, my father, they're still the greatest generation. Work ethic and all that. And I think they could have learned to work smarter a lot, but I don't know if they were capable, because that's it was kind of a badge of honor to be hardcore, grind it out. You know what I mean? So I think it's somewhere around. Whereas I agree with you now. Now it's gotten to the point where it's went so far the other way. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, you 40 hours, you'd think you're killing people. You know, and nothing worthwhile. You're going to work 40 hours to build. Never.
And we're in this weird time right now, right? There's this pursuit of comfort, and the pursuit of comfort. I can't speak, you know, to anything before, you know, my era, right? But I will say, when I was growing up, I was still taught, like, you have to earn the things you do. Like, I was crazy. I loved basketball, so I remember this. At 10 years old, we lived in the sticks of Safford, right? But there was a mile around that was our block, and I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and I would run. And I was a fat kid, too, right? So I wasn't exactly in the greatest shape, but I knew that I had to be in good shape to play basketball. I just didn't know anything about nutrition at this point. But so my stepmom, my dad was like, you want it, you got to go earn it. You know, shoot the shots out there, because they built me a little basketball court and this kind of thing. But I did it intentionally. That was uncomfortable. Nobody wants to get up. I was 9, 10 years old. I didn't want to get up at that, but I made myself get up. Yeah. You know, and that's the thing that we are lacking today is people are always pursuing a more comfortable life, a more comfortable life, more comfortable life. If we were to embrace being uncomfortable, how great can we become? How many people can you help when you're not just constantly, you know, how can I get more time on the couch to watch TV? How can I, you know, spend more time on vacation? And it's not that you don't want to spend those times and make those memories with your family. You do. But if you're trying to teach them to always pursue comfort, you're doing them a disservice. I'd be doing my kids a disservice if I didn't say, hey, no, you got to earn money. You got to work hard. You got to create a skill set that's valuable in the marketplace. So it's a thing that hopefully there's a paradigm shift in the next you know, several years, because it's crazy right now.
Yeah, there absolutely has to be, or else, right? Whose job is it to teach your children and children that?
Ours.
That's right. And if you don't, what happens?
Then the system teaches them.
And then is that good or bad?
Bad.
It could be. It could be really bad. Because then what? Do they reach their potential?
No.
Maybe, maybe not. And who knows what path they go down, right? So whose responsibility is it to teach them and raise them up? And not only them, then for them, if you are able and you're capable, and if you need help, you go up and ask to then go and get the other ones that are out there that are lost. And there are a lot of kids and a lot of young people in general that are lost. I mean, let's be honest, we're all just giant kids anyways. Yeah. Thankfully, you know, we've been raised to be here. We are here in an amazing point in time. We are, in history, some of the most privileged and blessed people ever in history. Yeah, we've had hard things, we've had hard times, we've had hard experiences, but look at this. We get to be in a room with 3 cameras, with clean water, with warm clothes, you know, and, you know, our bellies are full unless we're fasting. I'm pretty sure nobody's lacking, you know, food at the moment. Yeah, and so we are greatly blessed. So we have a duty and a responsibility. That was what was taught to me. One of the other great lessons is like we have a responsibility to uphold and teach them and bring those to others. And not only just our kids, but then who else, right? One more. Just like in the movie Hacksaw Ridge, or in not Shawshank, but Schindler's List. Like, can I reach one more? Can I save one more? Because nothing feels better than helping to serve and save one more.
Yeah. You don't know what the legacy of that person either will become. I mean, there's so many great stories. Like in our church, we had a bus ministry, had 34 buses. And it's funny. Now these kids they're pastors all over the world. And they were picked up at their house, underprivileged children, to go to the church. Right. When they were little kids, and now they're changing the world. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Like story after story, because someone went and picked them up, and the parents, and then a lot of times the parents would even come once the kids started coming. Yeah. And then, you know, you've got a family that's you know, becomes from broken to, you know, to a family unit. It's restored. Really cool. But you don't know who you're speaking to. It's like Josh and I was talking to. We hang out a lot. And we always talk to people all the time, and it's like you never know when you're gonna maybe bring someone's spirits up or meet somebody that's a great business partner. You just don't, and you should never turn those opportunities down, because you know they're divine appointments. Everything is a divine appointment. I don't care what anybody says. This is a divine appointment. You know, and our differences are what make these really great appointments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it gives a perspective from somebody that you have a core belief, but then you have like different perceptions on, you know, different subjects and whatnot, and the sharing of ideas. Like, you know, there's been many ideas you've shared with me over the years through mentorship, and I'm like, oh, and I see it different than I did in the beginning, but I wouldn't have seen it because I didn't have the worldview to be able to see that at the time. And I think that's super important too. Like, not to take us on a tangent, but like mentorship too, right? So we're talking about like our kids and raising them up, and bringing people, into the church on the buses, but like being intentional with every person that you're in front of, which is a huge thing of mine and yours, just like you're talking about, because you never know what that conversation can do. That conversation could resonate with them. And I gave an example, and I won't go through the whole story, but there was just this guy, and I'm just being honest, right? I was playing golf. It was prior to this wedding of a friend of mine, Frank's, and I had had some drinks that day, okay? So I'm sitting there at the restaurant, I just having fun. I can't remember what the heck was going on, but there's this gentleman there, and he started telling me about his dreams, opening up a food truck and all this kind of thing, right? And I don't know what I said to him. Whatever it was, apparently I gave him my number, and 3 days later he calls me and he's all excited. Man, I really appreciate it. Can I ask you some more questions? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go through this. 6 months later, he starts his food truck, and he calls me and he's like, dude, I just want to thank you for that thing that I said. I don't know what it was. It probably wasn't that, profound, especially my state of mind at this point in time, but it was what he needed to hear.
Correct.
And the fact is like, if we do that, like, that's just a piece of mentorship, whether it's someone that's with you for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, making sure that we can mentor somebody.
Well, the greatest gift you can give is time.
Yeah.
That's the greatest gift, because we don't know how much we have. And, if you can stay on that chute and live that thing, like, we're not guaranteed anything. But time is the most important thing you can give to people. There's no question. So, sometimes, we get busy and all that, but, at the end of the day, if you can go, why am I here? And even if it's a kind word, that's a big deal, but that's the most important commodity. It's time.
I challenge you, and I enhance that, because it's not just time. It's time, it's energy, and it's truth.
Absolutely.
And I've seen this time and time again. So my wife has bipolar 2, and so she battles depression occasionally. Thankfully, we've taken those experiences and enhanced everything around it to minimize and reduce, to create resiliency, to get through the challenges as best and fast as possible, more focus on the best as possible, and to learn from them. And I can tell you what, somebody can have 24 hours and a boatload of energy, and they can just crush it. Somebody can have a week's worth of time and be depressed and do nothing with it. So energy is very important. And when you are interacting, to be and deliver the truth, especially with what people need to hear. And in this book of truth here, it says, these are the fruits of the Spirit. And what you were just saying, like, hey, just an encouraging word, who knows what it might be. And it might not be profound, it might not be eloquent, but it will be at that level that person needs. It might be just what they needed at just the right time, because so many people are hurting in this world. In fact, second to what's in this book, I'm really engaging with a lot and taking a lot of mentorship from Jordan Peterson. And he said this best, and this guy has explored the darkness, has experienced the darkness, and gone into it with a lot of people. And he says in his shows, the thing that moves him the most is the people that come up to him, and it's just that one encouraging word, that thing that he shared, the truth that he shared was what got them through and what saved their life. He goes, and it moves him to tears when he talks about it, because he realizes how starved and how bad and the pain and suffering is in this world, where just people, what they only need most of the time is just some hope, and just the word, and just encouragement, and just a truth of life to hold on to keep them going through their pain and suffering. And just like we talked about earlier, some of the stories, it's that pain and suffering that you work through that you can then take back and go and save more and help more with your story and the story of others.
A future and a hope.
Yeah.
And the reality is, we don't have to have pretty words if we're in tune.
Right.
We're just the conduit.
Yeah.
That's what people get confused. Sometimes they think they have to have something prepared, or not really. Not really. If your spirit's sound and your mind and you're in tune, and you call it whatever you want, if you're in tune with the universe, whatever you want, or you're just, it will come through you. What that person needs. But a lot of people sometimes don't do anything because they don't think they're qualified. And sometimes the most one thing God does, he takes the most unqualified people and makes them qualified. And there's a whole book full of those.
He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
That's right.
Statement.
Yeah, and everyone in here, they have that. There's not a story you can't relate to where somebody has gone through the experience that you've gone through that didn't think they could do it, and what they just needed to do was one ounce of courage, right? It's that like that quote from the movie We Bought a Zoo, and it's like 20 seconds of courage.
Yeah.
What it connects with you.
That's true. Yeah. No. It's just it's and then there's the other side. I think there's a big talking about where we're at right now. It's, a lot of people don't really. There's just been this spirit of not really caring about other people. I've never seen it like it is now. Like really just don't care. Oh, that's too bad. I mean, you know what I mean. Whereas I would say our parents' era and all that, there was more concern for your neighbor. And I mean, I grew up in a small town. I graduated with 50 kids. So you took care if someone's passed away. There was food there. You took care of them and all that. And it just seems that common courtesy and concern for your fellow human being is kind of like, whatever, too bad. Hope you make it, and that's a difference. And I think that's the spirit, that we need, more than the not giving a what spirit.
Right, and it's the second commandment, right? It's the second thing they say, like, love your God above all else, love your neighbor as yourself. So love others. And with that said, what I foresee is the reason they blow it off is because they don't have the capacity. They don't have the heart. They haven't dealt with their own stuff where I can't even imagine having to go deal with somebody else's stuff. I'm still having dealt with my own. And that's the interesting thing about the conversations that I get to have and get into every single day, multiple times a day. I absolutely love it, going into the darkness, into the caves of life with people that they've been too scared of. And most times, the response that I'll ask after kind of going on that journey is, who else have you talked about this with? Nobody. When's the last time you talked about it? Never. Yeah. And it's like the relief and the healing and the transformation that occurs when you actually go in with wise counsel, with the truth, with somebody that's courageous enough to do it with you, is transformative. And it heals not only most likely what's been holding you back and causing so much pain and suffering in your life and the life around you, but it's likely generational and has been doing the same thing. And finally, you had the courage to open up your heart and said, I'm sick and tired of this, and I no longer want to see these horrific things happen to others, and I need help. It's got to start with me.
Generational curses are real.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question. I think I know you're going to answer this question.
Bring it.
But this is for you, because being a counselor is hard. It really is. I've done it for a long time. I had a lot of people work for me, and hard might be the wrong word, but how do you keep the darkness out of you? How do you, the question I'm asking you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you not latch it on to you? How do you not get dragged down by it? I don't know. I mean, the Lord equips people for different things, right? We talked about, was it Jonathan Head, or is it? Yeah. Right from Korn. And these other great athletes and people in this world who have geniuses, right? They've been created and they've been blessed to find what they're here to do and actually do it, right? I mean, people might look at this guy as this great drummer and be like, no, he's an idiot. He's a drummer for like this punk rock band. It's like, no, he's a genius. And thank the Lord, he actually found and went towards what he did and used his skills for greatness versus him going to be an accountant. Like, that would have been a tragedy. And just the Albert Einstein fish and tree, like, a fish trying to climb a tree is an idiot if he gets in the water. So same thing, like, there's people that are just equipped for it, and I know that. And so it was on my heart to then step in and fully do that. Stop being an accountant, stop grinding through, putting those skill sets, those great values that you've learned, and put them towards this, because there are very few people that are capable or want to do this. So, and part of that is, you got to have the self-care, because you got to be able to get up and dress up and show up. However, and just recently, this was brought up in our men's group, which is Iron Sharpens Iron, which is here in Phoenix, and there's one in Colorado, and there's one now in Scottsdale, where they said, first priority is love God. Second priority is, it used to be health was what was being promoted, which I was like, you got to put your oxygen mask on first and fill your cup up first before you can pour into others. However, just recently changed, went back to, well, what does the book say? It says, love others as yourself. And it's like, so serve others before yourself. And if you look in and you dig into that, it's like Isaiah 40:30-31 says, he will lift you up on the wings of eagle. He will provide you with strength. He will do immeasurably more than you can understand. How many times have we gone and just been like, I gotta go, I gotta step up, I don't care if I haven't slept, I'm gonna go all night. I can do this. And you just have there's just this energy and this power that comes from somewhere else, especially when it's serving others, because that's what we're here to do. We're not here to be isolated, because right, what's the best way to conquer an enemy? Divide and conquer. Isolate them. What do the animals do? They go after a group of animals, and then who do they get? The ones that fall back, and they surround them and they take them down. Like, you can, if you're isolated and you're not with the greatest warrior, the greatest protector, you're in trouble, and you're going to be set up to get taken down. So, going back to the question, what I do is I stay in the Word. I stay tight with Him. I got to stay aware, and I coach my clients on this all the time. Awareness is key. Where are you? How are you doing? And then, are you in the Word? If you're not a believer, I have clients that aren't believers. You need to be aware, and as soon as you start to fall to whatever that sin is or that temptation is, reach out to your brothers, or maybe it's your spouse if you have one. The Hebrew for what woman is beneficial adversary. It's not good for man to be alone. He needs a helper. He needs a helpmate. He needs a beneficial adversary. That's his one. His other ones are, or his first one is the Lord. The second one would be the wife if she's able to be, but he's a protector of her. So maybe it's wise counsel, godly wise counsel around you. So it's like reaching out when you're struggling, reaching out to others. Who are the others in your life? Do you have any other ones, or are you isolated? Most men are isolated. Most men close up and ham up.
Yeah, it's 2 points. In fact, I gotta write one down so I don't forget it.
I do the same thing.
So the first one is that, you talk about how certainly men a lot of times will kind of like just bury their emotions. There's this funny skit by Bill Burr, if you guys know the comedian.
Oh, I love.
And he's like, you just bury it down until it comes out in this like rage, because that's how he was brought up, and it's a hilarious skit. But there's so much truth to it. Like, you see it happen. Like, I remember growing up. I remember seeing men around me that you could just tell they never shared any of the bad things that were going on in their life. And they utilized tools like alcohol, sometimes marijuana, whatever, to help cope with things that they could easily express, but they were told not to. Like, we come from generations of being like, no, you're a man. Be a man. You don't need to talk about that. Just go through it. Just grit through it. The big problem with that is, and until you tell somebody, that it never gets released, right? And by talking to somebody, you release that, and then you can start looking at it from not an introspective lens. You can start looking from a global lens with somebody else's thoughts, and you can then take wisdom in, because some people are like, oh, all the answers are within inside you. Okay, that's not true, and in my opinion, because no, there's external things that happen to help you identify what answers are for the solutions or things you're dealing with. So by telling people and opening that up is huge. But the next thing we were talking about, like, is so I was talking, you were talking a minute ago about basically isolating yourself, right? Well, if you're isolating yourself and you're the only counsel you have, like, how on earth do you get good ideas? You can't. You only have like what you've read, what you've seen. But if I go to you and I say, hey Jeff, hey man, here's what's going on in my business. I go to you and I was like, hey, here's what's going on, man. Do you have any insight? And you'd probably be like, yep, this has happened 3 times, and here's how I'd work with this person. Here's how to do this. Or, if it was a personal issue and you're like, yeah, I've seen this before. Here's some things that can happen. And it's important there. But also another thing you were saying just a minute ago, when you're serving others, it's very hard to be depressed, right? Depression is one of those things that we see in our world today with men, women, kids, for a lot of different reasons. We don't need to dive into all the different reasons, but most of the time when you're depressed, you're looking internal. You're sitting there thinking about things that aren't perfect in your life. You're comparing to other things, right? But when you're serving others, it's almost impossible to be depressed. Like, you're enjoying serving others, and that doesn't. You could be a business owner that's serving the people that work for you in some capacity. You could work in a company. It could be at home serving your kids, taking them to practice, your wife, helping her with, whatever you need. Like, when you're serving others, it's almost impossible to be depressed. And I think a lot of people need to take that in, because if you start looking outward instead of just inward all the time, you can get rid of a lot of that darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. I will challenge you in one aspect, because I learned the hard way. There's a difference between being depressed because I'm sorry for myself, I'm melancholy, and there's a state of depression. And I learned this 6 years ago. I was driving home. It's January 4th. back to work. Holidays are over. It's snowy. It's cold. It's dark. It's Chicago. There's a ton of traffic. And I'm just get on the road to come home, and I get a text from my wife. Get home now. I don't know if I'm going to be here anymore. You need to figure out something to do with this kid. Our son is 2 years old. This kid is like the most perfectly built kid. He came out, and I'm just like, he's good. You know, he's strong. He's well built. He's got a full head of hair. You know, and just his joy. And I'm like, I'm like, what? You know, I'm just like, the thoughts that I'm racing are vicious. And I get home and I see the greatest dichotomy I've ever seen. And I was raised, it was just grind through it. My dad had depression, but it was grind through it. Just go, put your head down, get to work. So I get home and I go into the basement. We had this, you know, like I said, 5-bedroom house. It's a nice suburb in Chicago, finished basement. On one side of the basement is this happy-go-lucky kid surrounded by toys, Sesame Street or something's on the TV. He's laughing and jumping around. On the other side of the basement, behind this couch, is my wife. And she is in a ball and a shell of herself. And literally on the floor like this. And if you've ever seen that in a person, you don't know depression and suicide.
I've seen it before.
Okay. And thankfully, what she was doing at the time was she was going through and looking up and trying to understand what was going on with her and doing some research and taking some online tests to then preclude to you have bipolar 2, which was affirmed. And a lot of times when people get a confirmation on what's going on with them, there's almost a freedom. Like, it's like, okay, at least now I know what's going on. And so it was amazing to watch that. And from that darkness and from that pain and suffering, we've been able to work with that. You know, she's been able to put the pieces in place that help her. And it was that isolation was part of it. And you're right. So when most people are depressed or they're feeling sorry for themselves or having a difficult time, getting out and serving others, especially those that are dealing with the same thing you are, helps you through it, right? You know, iron sharpens iron. You know, 2 together, right? 3 together are stronger than 2, right? You know, and that's going to help you. It's going to help them help you. There's that feel-good feeling, right? The real gift, the real oxytocin, the real value is what the giver gets, not what the receiver gets. It's the person that gives, which is why we're here to serve others. You know, even at the molecular level, right? What's working our hands, our body, it's not working by individual cells off on their own. No, it's cells and molecules and things like that are working together, doing what they're supposed to do, doing what the finger is supposed to do. We're doing what the arm and the bicep and the heart is supposed to do for the greater good, for you to then be used as this, like almost like a transformer. You get the 5 transformers coming together. Now we can go out and really wreck it. You know, get in touch with the Lord and what He wants you to do, doing good in this world. Nothing feels better than that. And what you were designed to do, how do you know? There's just this bliss, this flow that happens. It just feels amazing, and it helps you through those challenging times.
Yeah, it's a cool score. And the other thing is you're willing to talk about this, which that's awesome too. So you're not without, you know, I mean, when you got that call and went home, you were scared, freaked out.
Yeah.
And so it happens. You know, it can happen.
Yeah, and it wasn't always that way. In fact, my wife, much like what you were saying earlier, was raised in a home where it's like, sweep it on the rug, everything gets put in the closet, we don't talk about anything. Hence the reason why most men just be a man up, toughen up. Yes, there's some of that. But is it because I don't know how to deal with that? I don't know how to have this conversation. I don't want to deal with these difficult, uncomfortable emotions. I don't want to show weakness, which is admirable to a point. To get through the battle, to finish the war, or to finish this, but at some point in time, you're going to have to deal with it. And you either go in and slay the dragon on your own, or it comes out and wreaks havoc. And now you have to deal with something that has just destroyed everything, which has happened to me a number of times. And it's a matter of, are you going to have the courage to go into the darkness and go get it before it comes and gets you?
Well, as you were saying that, it's like you can either pursue the dragon or the dragon can pursue you, right? And if you're going on offense, you're going to pursue that dragon, and knowing that it's going to come with some hard emotions and things you don't want to necessarily. None of us do. We all live this human experience.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to have those hard conversations that you're like, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
And I already know how I'm going to feel.
Life is already enough pain and suffering.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to just bring on more, right?
But it's like if you don't address it, then things fester, and when things fester, they get worse, and then that's when the dragon comes up on you at a time where you don't know, and then you're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way. But
yeah, when do problems come up? When it's convenient?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, always convenient, right?
Yeah, never.
Yeah, exactly. Just think about it.
I'll tell you about my Thursday yesterday.
So I mean, you can take that right from Matthew 4. Matthew 4 is what happened. Jesus gets baptized. Awesome. That's my son. I'm well pleased. You rock. Now I'm going to go off in the wilderness to spend time with you. 40 days, 40 nights in the desert. Those of us in Arizona know what the desert's like. No food, no water. And then who comes? The devil. Right? Didn't come on the first day. Who's fasted, right? How long have you ever fasted for?
Oh, probably 2-3 days.
2 or 3 days?
Same.
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah, exactly. How were you feeling after the second and third day?
Terrible.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm talking like sun up to sundown. I still ate after sundown.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't like a full 3 days
Right.
or anything. In fact, I did it for a week, but it was sun up to
Yeah.
sundown. It was something our church did
Right.
earlier.
We all do that wussy Daniel.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so hard.
Yeah, but take that, how you felt on that second or third day, multiply that by 10 or 20 in the desert, back 2,000 years ago, and then the man of darkness comes and he tries to get you. That always happens. It's like in your weakness is when the temptation comes.
And the liar comes.
Yeah, and the good news is in 11 sentences or 11 passages verses, he tells you how to beat him.
Right.
He tells you how to beat him with the word and knowing the word. He didn't go to his iPhone. He didn't go to his lifeline. He had to know it in his heart. So if you don't know it, hey, you're human. That's fine. Get it. Get on the phone. Get with the person that can help you. Go find it. Google it if you're able to, but have it because that will help you ward it off and from making the mistakes and letting that dragon come out and wreak havoc. You ward it off then, and you do your best to keep it warded off.
Well, like I always tell people, whether you believe or don't believe.
Correct.
I go, careful I state this, but I go, you got to believe in something because if you're just existing on this earth, that's going to be lonely. But 2, if you want to follow one book, take out what you believe, you aren't going to go wrong with that book.
Right.
It's the perfect path, and especially as you get older, that book means in your 20s something, in your 30s something. I'm in my 50s now. It's completely means different now than it did 10 years ago and 10 years after that, and that's why it's a living word.
Yeah.
And it changes.
Yeah.
And that's what the beauty of it is, for the challenges.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be close to somebody, what do? You spend time with them, and it's just that discipline and it should be in the first time thing in the morning, which we could go off for an hour on that. But first thing in the morning, before the world gets you.
Yeah, exactly.
And the world's crazy now. I mean,
Right.
never needed that morning time more than anything, just because of the speed, and that's why I feel sorry for the kids, just the phones. And I mean, when I grew up, you got time to call somebody a name or ruin a relationship. It takes 3 seconds of being emotional and lose your mind, and it's all out there, and look what it's done to people, in Hollywood and all this stuff. It's awful, and we're all flawed human beings. How much you do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your story to glory. I know that's, you do coaching. Like, what does your coaching look like? You know, what does your speaking engagements look like?
Yeah.
Like, how can somebody work with you?
Yes, absolutely. They can reach me. I'm active on social media, mostly on Instagram right now. You can reach me at jeff@yourstorytoglory.com. You can go to the website. So right now I'm focused on Instagram. I just enjoy that platform the most, and have some other Christian content creators. So I do Christian life fulfillment coaching, and so it's working with the word. You don't have to be a believer, but this is what I'm going to take it back to. And a lot of my clients that aren't believers, we still talk about this. These are still wisdoms. They believe in different wisdom books, but they still come back to the same stuff, the same wisdoms. So, and then as far as we work, usually I set up, a quarterly basis. We set the goals and we just go forth. You have to do, if you have external goals, you also have to do the internal work. It's a 2-track system. Like, yeah, we can reach those goals, but also there's going to be internal work to do. And that's where the value comes from. It's that greater impact from that internal work. And as far as coaching and speaking, it's just a matter of what the topics are, right? So I have an expertise in a sense from depression and understanding mindset and understanding human behavior, as well as what it is to be a spouse of somebody. So there's not much for that. There's a lot for depression and bipolar, but what about the one that loves them, right? And especially whatever that mental health is, that challenge is. So, there's support that is needed for that. So, and then as well as purpose and fulfillment. I had to go on that journey. When my life fell apart, and I told that story earlier, I sat there and I looked around, I'm like, I did everything right. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm burning out. I'm not seeing the success I did when I was in college. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And it was because I had things all messed up. And I didn't know what that formula was. So I was like, I started, and at the time I had 2 small kids, a very demanding job, a house to take care of and things like that. So it was like, I don't have time to read a bunch of books. So then that's when I found podcasts. And I was like, okay, I can listen while I'm busting my hump all over the house, and for the family, in the morning, right? Getting my mind right, turning off the news, and it's protecting that time, right? Seek first. Okay, it's like, I want to be up before the enemy, like as Jocko Willink says. So what does that mean? Who is the enemy, right? And it's like, I want to get my guideposts set right away. I want to set the course and remind myself, especially on the days where I'm like, I haven't gotten any sleep, for whatever reason, I am not in a good place. I need something to keep me going, some hope and some light. So I stick with it. I get into this first as quickly as I can. I put this in my ear with the word and message, like, what am I dealing with right now? Or what are my clients or my family dealing with that I can, at least, armor up with, and then help them and serve them. So for myself, it was, back in that day, was, what does purpose look like? There's got to be a purpose. I'm not just grinding out here, burning out for the 3rd time in a corporate, job, doing what I'm not supposed to be doing. So I came up with a formula, and it was funny because one of the very first podcasts I found was Lewis Howes' School of Greatness, and he had only started a year ago, so that was kind of fun to be on his journey. And then, as God would have it, the same night I came up with the title for what my program would be or my business would be, was the same night he had come to town and he was on a book tour for his 2nd book, and he was in Chicago, and my wife and I were in a terrible place. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lewis Howes is going to be in my city. I was like, I got to get there. Because I'm like, I think I figured out like what the formula is for fulfillment. And I'm like, he was the guy I went to. Like, this is so divine. I go, like, we have 3 small kids now. And I go to my wife and I was like, what are the chances that I could go downtown, like after work? It's like, I know that you have it a long day. You're usually done by the time I get home. Like, get in here and take over and help me finish out this day. And it's like, how about I was like, what if I go home, what if I go downtown instead of coming home tomorrow night because Lewis Howes is going to be in town? She's like, yeah, go ahead, go. And I was like, are you sure? She's like, yeah, you should go. And I was like, no way. And so I'm like, okay. I didn't even, don't question it, right? Just have the courage, right? The courage to ask. Because I wouldn't have asked, right?
No follow-up questions.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, and there was that courage to ask. So I go downtown, and he comes down the stairs, and he's on the stairs. There's probably like 100 people there for his book signing, and I noticed, it's like he's just taking questions, and I noticed like I could tell when he was about to finish the question, he would always like go for the person that raised their hand first, and so right when he was wrapping a question, I just raised my hand right away, and I'm like, what is I was like, what is the purpose and fulfillment? What does fulfillment mean to you in this role? And he confirmed it, and it is understanding who you are and the gifts that you've been given, right? So that's a journey right there. Who are you? What does that mean? What are my personality aspects? What's my passion? What are my passions? What do I love to do? What, like when I'm not working and the kids are in bed and I'm not tending to the wife and serving her, it's like, what am I interested in? And what does that look like? And then it is using that to serve others. How can I be a benefit to others? How can I take this in the world and serve others? How can I make their life better by serving them? And then, of course, the X factor is, what about generating value? What value does this provide? What's the market rate? How can I be the best at it? Because if you have those things, and they talk about that, you have the wall, or the word grit on your wall. Angela Duckworth, grit, right, is the key to success. It is, what is the formula for grit? Do you know?
It's not my painting. So.
Oh! Well, you better know. Do you know? If you had a guess.
Formula for grit?
Yeah, what are the 2 aspects under grit?
I'm not going to steal your thunder. I have no idea.
Angela Duckworth, go check it out. She wrote a book. This is a TED Talk, so you can do it in 20 minutes. It's passion and perseverance. That's what makes you successful. Because that's what will push you beyond the person that's working 8 hours, checking in, checking out, I'm out of here. It's like, I want to get better. I want to do better. I have this passion for this. I want to see this better. I know this can be done better. That's what my dad had, and that's why he was like, I can't work for a corporation anymore. I can't work for this automobile dealership anymore. I'm going to go off. I'm going to do it better in my own shop, and I'm going to take over. And unfortunately, my grandfather had a stroke that decimated him. My dad was like, perfect. I'm going to step up, and I'm going to do this right. And the name of the shop was AAA Tool and Die. It was accuracy, always assured. And he's like, I'm going to do the best job, and I honor that. And it was, hey, and I'm going to go out there and serve. And he did a great thing. He survived in a dying industry. And how many people do a great thing when it doesn't look like it's going to be done? Because they have perseverance and they have a passion that drives them beyond that normal level. Yeah. And it's a matter of tapping into that. Most people, I think, that haven't done it. Mm-hmm. They wanted you to go, which is great. This is great. Like, our parents did the things for us, because they were surviving. They wanted to provide. They wanted to survive, which is like, think about it. They came out of, it was like the 1900s, then into the World War I, then into the Depression. Then it was like all survival. Yeah. And it was like they were just trying to survive, which is fine. And they were trying to make life better so we didn't have to suffer the way they did, which is admirable. But then it got to the point where it was too much, too much comfort, right? This is the first time that they've actually seen a downturn in some of the key aspects of life for people. And it's because it's gotten too comfortable. And that was admirable, right? You want things to be better. That's what you're here to do. You make things better. But when is better actually a detriment to your children and society?
Well, it's that cycle. I'm sure you've heard it, right? So strong men create great times create weak men, weak men create bad times, and then rinse and repeat. It's the same kind of thing. So, it's like, being passionate and then, having that perseverance towards whatever you're doing, is how you kind of break that cycle if you're in. And I think, honestly, we're in kind of a weak person society. So,
well, men have no testosterone.
Yeah.
Lower testosterone. Much lower.
So if the trend continues, there won't be any children. Then it's over. Yeah. They say, well, I just watched a show, and they think it's the greatest danger to mankind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is frightening.
And when you think about it, it goes back to this, right? We nailed it. You nailed it right there. Here's the other thing too. Be careful what you're hearing, right? Because we know now that maybe not everything we hear is true. So maybe let me go do my own homework, and let me discern, and then let me take it and bounce it off some other people that I trust and I feel like are wise, some wise counsel, right? So with that said, testosterone is down, but does it have to be down in you? No. I mean, does it? The things you can do about that? Sure. Maybe that's the trend. Yeah, because most people have gone down this path and then led down this path of temptation and comfort. But it doesn't have to be true for you, and it doesn't have to be true for those around you.
Well, wise counsel is probably more important, and just putting yourself with like-minded people who are willing to call you out. Don't just be a bunch of agreeers. Yeah. Because I never thought we'd get to a point. Politicians and stuff, they used to lie and try to hide it because they get booted out. Now we have a world that you just lie, and then you go, oh, I lied, I just want to get elected, and they all lie, and that's both sides. I'm not going either side. It's just, so what's wise counsel? You really need it now because it ain't on TV, and as much as they all feed off each other. I don't care if it's Fox, I don't care. It's all this fear mongering. And it's just not true. I mean, and then every day they get on there and they bitch about what's going on. It's like, what do you're not accomplishing anything.
Correct.
All that's happening is every empire, if you study them, and and as everybody thinks America is nothing's ever gonna happen. I go, we're a baby in the grand scheme of empires. We aren't even anything compared to Rome. It took them 1,000 years to screw it up the first time,
Yeah.
And that's but history is, it's cyclical. It repeats itself, and that's just where we're at.
Yeah.
So strong counsel and strong friends, and and then stand up for your beliefs.
Yeah.
And don't compromise. See, I refuse to compromise. I have my belief systems. I'm not God. He's the realm over the people. But I also get to follow that. And I'm not gonna have people tell me that there's something wrong with me for that.
Yeah.
Not gonna do it.
And
that's where we got to go.
You nailed it. And there was a great statement that my wife and I had heard from some wise counsel was, acquaintances will tell you what you want to hear. Friends will tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is a book of truth, and it's not soft-cuddly truth. It is some hard, convicting truth. And I know that I've compromised. I've not been on this. In fact, things happen to me all the time where I fall. And so I'm not perfect. I'm not going to say that. I mean, I've done some things that are terrible. I continue to have the same mistakes, yet I'm keeping myself aware, and I have a wife who has, courage and a quick trigger to remind me quickly when I'm not adhering to this. And so therefore it's on me. I can either get mad and fight back, which that's not going to help too much, or I can be like, I got you, I hear you, I need to take ownership, I need to go back in the lab and do the work. So who can help me with that? And so I'm still working on it. But then the joy is that I get to go and help many others.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and you nailed it too. You said history repeats itself. My dad always said, maybe history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And so it's very interesting because this discussion of men and strong Christian men in Exodus, and there's this great series on Daily Wire Plus right now, and it has Jordan Peterson, Dennis Prager, and 5 or 6 other theologians. These people study this book. They've been studying it their whole life. They're sitting around a table discussing one chapter of this book and still learning from each other. It is amazing. And the things you hear are like, whoa. And in Exodus, Pharaoh, his initiative was to take out the firstborn, right? So Pharaoh, was he a good guy or bad guy? For those who don't know.
Bad guy.
Bad guy. Tyrannical, right? Trying to push some evil, some things that were selfish. So who did he try to take out first? The firstborn. Who stands in the gap? Who stands in the way of a tyrannical, evil force? The strong Christian man that is holding to the truth, that has to courageously armor up and suit up and stand in the path to protect, to hold forth the truth and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Yeah, are women strong? Yeah. Will they protect especially the babies? You better believe. Right here in Arizona, it's like the mama bear has like risen up and become like a trending thing. It's also kind of sad that the mama bear had to become a trending thing. It's a great thing, but it's like, where are the men? Where are the strong Christian men? It is time for a revival. It's time to stop listening and allowing what the media puts out there as far as like, oh, the fuddy-duddy dad, and we make fun of him, we take him down, and he's not cool, and he's not funny, and he just goes up to work, he's a buffoon. No. You have to honor up, you have to step up and man up, and whatever that means, but what it means is what's in here. Who is the masculine, strong man that stands up for what is true, what is right, and will do his best to defend and to protect and to raise and rebuke not only his children, but those around him, so they will be strong and linking arms, right? When you are in a battle, right, you can go alone, probably won't be very good unless you got this guy with you, right, the Michael Jordan of them all.
It's true.
So who do you need around you, right? You have 3 men. What is the standard defensive position when they're they're together, they're around a fire? When they start getting attacked, what do? Shoulder to shoulder. They cover each other's 6. And now they're full coverage. Same thing. When the evil comes, who's going to cover you? Where's the position you take? And who are you taking it with? Who's going to be in your circle?
And pick those people carefully.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, this is great. I appreciate you coming on. So one more time, like, how can people find you if they're looking for coaching?
Yeah.
I believe it's yourstorytoglory.com, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. And they can fill out a form and
there's sessions on there. Obviously, any intro session, like to have a conversation to talk about what's going on. Am I the right fit for you? Am I the right fit for what message you want to bring your company, your organization, your school, your group? That, hey, let's have that conversation. I'll tell you what I focus on and how I do it and how I deliver that message. Or what are your goals? Are we a good fit? Hey, I have to get coaching too. I have to better myself if I'm going to be better for them. Maybe I'm not the right fit. Like, I can take care of X, Y, Z. If you want someone that's going to teach you yoga or how to be, to be a great shooter, I have other people that you're going to be going to. So no, it's like, nope, you go talk to this guy at ER Tactical. You go talk to this person over here. Like, I will take care of the heart, and then you can go do the good things with that heart. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I know you got a ton out of this. There's just a lot of gold in this particular episode. So please, share a clip, with a friend of yours. Put it on social media. We appreciate you doing that, and we look forward to seeing you next time.